What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the BizDad Podcast. Today, I am super stoked to have Jim Sheils on the podcast. I almost said Jim Sheils just because of what the joke I made right before we started recording. But super excited to have you on. I think we've tried to do this 3 times, and now it's finally happening. I absolutely am grateful that you're jumping on. Looking forward to having a good conversation with you. If you can, Jim, go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us about your family and your business.
Hi, my name's Jim Sheils. I am happily married, 5 children ranging from 3 to 21. So we have quite a gamut, mixture of biological and adopted, which I know I talk about in a lot of interviews. And my business has always been real estate investments. I've been a real estate investor for 26 years and also own a family education company called 18 Summers, which has a best-selling Wall Street Journal book that brought me and Adam together.
Absolutely, yes. Between 18 Summers and GoBundance, definitely bringing together the team here. So
Go Bros are a great group.
For sure, yeah, it makes a huge connection happen. So,
welcome to the BizDad Podcast, where we dive into the melding of fathership and entrepreneurship with your host, the original BizDad himself, Adam Labar. Adam is a Christian, a former Air Force officer, a dad to 3 amazing kids, a coach, a real estate investor, and a business owner. On this podcast, he'll explore the unique journeys of amazing dads who are striving for greatness in both business and family. So whether you're a dad who is an aspiring entrepreneur, a seasoned business owner, or simply a man striving to be a better dad, get ready as the BizDad brings you conversations to inspire, challenge, and equip you to be a better dad and entrepreneur. And now, here's Adam.
So tell me about the 18 Summers, and the real estate side. Go into a little bit of depth on the business side of the house. What made you kind of decide to write and start a group like this, write that book and start this group? And then how did that kind of get started, and what was inspiration there?
Yeah, there was definitely a need. I got to have some small success at a young age in my 20s in real estate, and I got invited to some pretty cool events, Adam. And, being that young and naive and having a little success, I got to speak on some pretty big stages. And the old saying, don't get too close to your heroes, was only too true, because I saw some people that I really looked up with that had this incredible success or balance sheet, and their personal lives were a total mess, especially their family life. And it scared the hell out of me, because I didn't think I was any better than that, and that could happen. And so that was always a precursor. But then, going back about 11 years, to 2011, I had catalysts happen in my life. That's why I started the company. I was, in the process of adopting my 2 oldest sons. I was, working a real estate investment company that could have gone bankrupt in 2008. And I was preparing to donate a kidney to my father. And so when all those things happened at once, I just hit a point of critical. And I started to write about things and share some experiences I was having, and it took hold. Groups like GoBundance, I remember speaking the first Fambundance ever, Mike McCarthy's backyard, sharing some of this. But that's what started 18 Summers. It was a book that I didn't want to write. I didn't feel comfortable. I didn't want to share the stories. It was very vulnerable, and I said, who the hell am I to do this? I'm a real estate investor. I'm not a family psychologist. But it seems now the popularity and, all these years later, still a bestseller. It was necessary, and I'd like to think I wasn't necessarily the best writer, but the message really took hold of a lot of people.
No, it absolutely did. I remember I was living in Virginia at the time when I was listening to it. So I had like 6 acres up there, and I would mow the lawn and just listen to books. And I was listening to your book, and I just kept stopping and taking notes. And then I'd be riding and stop and take notes, and then I'd be riding and stop and take notes. And I went back in like on a break. I was like, Raquel's my wife. And I was like, we have got to start doing some of these things. This is amazing. So it was, that's one of the reasons that I started this podcast too. Was I was in the military for a very long time, and I saw so many families fall apart. Like dads deployed all the time, come back, and the wife wanted nothing to do with them, or the dad wanted nothing to do with the kids or the family, and it was just like heartbreaking to watch these folks that when you're under fire in a combat zone are super engaged and super on top of it and ready to go and focused, and then get home and they're like, no, I want nothing to do with that. Like they just lost the ability to connect there. And then I get out because I wanted to be more involved with my kids' lives, and I start to see the same thing in business, like you saw. Like people have these balance sheets, and it's like, oh yeah, I'm doing all this for my family, and I'm like, but you never see your family. Like, what do you mean you're doing this for your family? Like, what is going on? And I think that just me talking about that in GoBundance is why somebody was like, no, you need to read this book. You need to connect with Jim. But it's such a passion of mine to be involved in the kids' lives, and I've wanted to be a dad since I was like 13. So it's hard for me to imagine like skipping out on that responsibility, and that's and more than just the responsibility, but skipping out on the pure enjoyment that I have. Like I just came back from a GoBundance event, like a local event, and I pulled in, and the boys heard me pull in, and they come running out, Dad, like tackling me in the driveway, and I'm like, what joy people miss when they don't have this, it's like such a, and you mentioned Mike McCarthy, and he was saying something that was just at the Utah event recently. And he was like, I want to be front door famous. I want you all to be front door famous. So when you walk through the front door, it's like you're just like your biggest fans are there waiting for you. And like, that just feels so good. But, so I'm saying all that to say, I thank you very much for doing what you're doing and pushing that to the forefront and writing that book. And, I think it's super exciting to have other men want to be super involved in their kids' lives and engage that way. So, so speaking of that, though, I want to rewind a little bit and about men being involved in lives and kind of understand what it was like for you growing up. What was it like for growing up under your father and your mother? Your father specifically, just we learn so much from our dads, and where whether it's what to do or what not to do, one way or another, we learn a lot from our dads on how to be men later on in life. So can you kind of fill me in on what it was like for you growing up?
Yeah, my dad and I have an interesting, definitely an interesting story that ends well and very close. But taking it even back further into the military, Adam, my father lost his father when he was 6 years old. My grandfather was a World War I vet, came over from Ireland as a very young man, went right into the war, and was gassed in France, and he died 20 years later after the war. I think he's made it from rare stomach cancer. So my dad grew up in New York City without a father. It was very hard on my grandmother and his only other brother and sister. So my dad was very Dale Carnegie and liked by everybody. Great Irish musician. He struggled his whole life though with money. So that was tough to watch. Businesses failing. So that was hard. It was hard to watch him go through that. I wouldn't say we weren't unclose, but we weren't necessarily close. There's always a lot of stress, and working, business failures, and that was really hard to be around. Watching my parents go broke in 5th grade is something I'll never forget. In fact, when you're going back to your younger self and all the work we've done, I go back to that kid of watching and feeling helpless. But I think that's what drew me to entrepreneurship. So my dad had a big part in that. And to my dad's credit, he always did, even when he failed in his own business, he said, Jim, do something on your own. Do something on your own. It's the only way to have freedom, to have an endless ceiling, to really create wealth, to create your own business, do your own business. And I always respected that. He applauded me through all the real estate, and then to go to the kidney donation, that was not something I expected, So, for my military friends, Adam, I say, they're like, were you in the military? I said, I wasn't, but I did donate a kidney to a vet. And so that was my father. So, but, I guess overall the question, my dad was a loving man, cared about his kids. I think he had trauma he never got over of losing his dad at that age. I remember when on his 80th birthday, we were at a family retreat, and he said to the whole group, what did he say? He said, my dad died 74 years ago, and I still miss him every day. And the whole room went silent. And so he never lost that. My grandmother lived till her 90s. He's the one who took care of her because his brother and sister died young tragically as well. So the old man went through a lot. But like I was just saying to another GoBundance group earlier, the credit I gave to my dad is he never pulled that trump card, Adam. Never once. Never once did you hear him say, well, I drank a lot because I didn't have a father. My dad didn't drink a lot. Even being an Irishman, loved the Irish pubs, was not a big drinker. He never left, even in hard financial times. He never said, well, what do you expect? I didn't have a father. That was his right to probably pull out that trump card. He never did. I respected it so much. And probably biggest was when I was going to donate the kidney to him. Of course, he refused, being the type of guy. I mean, I had to really, and that's part of my story, even in my book. Convincing my dad to take the kidney was definitely quite an experience.
So when you say that he never pulled that trump card, and you'd mentioned that you always respected that, was that something you noticed even at a younger age? Were you able to say, like, my dad could be doing this, or was that not until much later in your life that you kind of realized it?
It's much later that you realize how naive you are.
Very much so.
Once you start to see things all the way around, especially once you become a father and you see that. I'm like, I think I was 36. I'm like, how did I go 36 years without telling my father how much I respected him for growing up without a father?
Yeah.
How does that happen? I guess, North Jersey, Irishmen, we're not known for sharing our feelings and such. It was probably an ugly sight the first time I was opening up to him. But yeah, you don't realize what you don't see when you're young. That's for sure.
And it's, I want to encourage anybody that's listening that if you're a brand new father, or you are still on the younger side, do that now. Figure that out now. Set the analysis up now to go, okay, what did my father actually provide? What was he missing that I feel like he didn't give to me, but at the same point, he didn't have it to give. So just work through that thought process, because you don't want to wait until, I think I was probably 34 before I started to really realize, what my dad had done. You were 36, like you said. And it was like, man, if I could have figured that out at 22, what a different relationship I could have had with him for those 14 years.
Yeah.
It wasn't that there was a bad relationship, but how different it would have been, because I would have adjusted my perspective, so I want to encourage everybody to think through that and go, okay, if I'm 25, can I think differently about my father? Can I look at this differently and then show up as a man differently in life because I've done that analysis? So when you were, you said you were 36, you're 36, you're analyzing that, you're like, man, oh man, he grew up without a father. How did that kind of impact you as a dad? How did that impact, the direction you wanted to go and how you wanted to interact with your kids?
When I realized that, I knew that time was fleeting. You got to remember, when I finally said this to my dad, it's 36 is when I donated the kidney to him. I'm 50 today.
Yeah.
So there was a big coming of age for me, Adam, where I just had a different curiosity and commitment towards family life. When I started to realize the magnitude of what my dad had gone through, poor Irish immigrant, New York City, tough neighborhood, no father, I just started to realize, how lucky am I? How lucky am I? And I just started to, it gave me a better sense of gratitude of being able to be with my kids, to provide in ways my dad never could, do things that we couldn't do. And I knew that time was fleeting. And so I think it just gave me a greater appreciation, and it's never left me.
So you were starting 18 Summers at roughly the same time. Is that what you're saying?
18 Summers, yeah, I had already been doing some retreats with my wife, so it was more of a hobby. And the book came out shortly after the kidney donation.
So, how did you kind of lay out in your brain, like how involved you wanted to be as a dad when you still had yet to kind of make that peace with your father mentally to kind of establish that? Where did you get that idea that you said, hey, I need to spend more time with my kids. I need to have these weekend retreats with them. I need to have these things going on, these family boardrooms. Like, how did you kind of establish that in your brain when you had when you didn't really have a blueprint for that yet?
Yeah, it was experience. Like I told you, like you said, I knew I wanted to be a father since I was 13.
Yeah.
Well, in my I always thought I wanted to have a big family as well. Mm-hmm. But in those times in my early 20s, when I was invited back to these real estate events, you know what I mean? Here it was, entrepreneurship was working, real estate, seeing these people that I thought had it all and getting to see behind the curtain was such saying, wow, the money does not, it brings certain freedoms and opportunities. It is not the NY be all to everything.
Yeah.
And so I just started to realize, wow, a lot of these guys that are struggling, they have no time with their kids. And I just had an early sense, and I talk about this in the book, that I wanted to have an obnoxious amount of quality time with my family, like without apology. And it's just kind of a line I drew in the sand, if that made sense, seeing these things and not getting that with my dad. And it's just a line I drew in the sand. And I would be able to say I've stuck to that.
So after drawing that line in the sand and kind of saying, hey, this is what I am going to do, but yet still running real estate stuff, still doing investments, how did you kind of start to separate in a real life, real world, like sitting down, like, how do you truly separate business and family to make sure that you have, you're not crossing that line in the sand, you're staying where you need to be?
Yeah, I mean, one of the main things I learned, Adam, was the power of rhythms. Rhythms save us from ourselves. And I just started to put some powerful rhythms into place, and that's what our book is about, to give priority to my wife and my children. Because I knew I would just run gangbusters. I'm an ADD, fire red entrepreneur. If I didn't put these things in place, these are guardrails, right? These little rhythms that I have are guardrails around our relationship. And I just started to put them into place and keep them. And that, I don't think it'll ever get you all the way there, but it gets you 80%, I think. Mm-hmm. Along with setting the rhythms, there was certain, guidelines around them. I talk a lot about, this thing, right?
Oh, yeah.
There has to be times of complete and total unavailability. In 18 Summers, we call it intermittent tech fasting. You're not giving up technology. I mean, I don't agree with that. We wouldn't be having this great conversation. However, there's a time and a place. And there are times you have to be completely and totally unavailable for the people you care the most about. Yeah. So I started to weave in intermittent tech fasting into my life. That was really important of when I was completely off, when I, set requirements for our family to be completely off. And there is benefits reaped when you do that.
Yeah. I used to have a really hard time putting things in my calendar that were family things because I told myself, oh, they're not just a spot on my calendar. It was like an excuse in my brain of that. But then somebody just twisted that on me and they're like, no, you're protecting that time so that nobody else can get on that calendar at that time. Nothing else could push into it. If they're on your calendar, they're on your calendar. So now even in the middle of the week, I'll have 3 days in the middle of the week that in the middle of the day, so Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday in the middle of the day, it says playtime with the boys. So I homeschool the kids, so they're here. This morning we ended up having to do it in the morning instead of the afternoon. Aw, shucks, so we just they pick the fun, whatever we're gonna do, we go and do it. So and that was from a Fan Abundance event a year and a half ago. My kids were like, I want more time with you in the middle of the day, and I was like, all right, let's put it in. So now we've got it in the calendar. So I butt it right up against lunch, and we go and have lunch and go play. And it's just so much fun. And I really want to do the intermittent tech fasting. Like that's if nothing else, like at bare minimum for like that half an hour before dinner and a half hour after dinner, like just phones in a Faraday bag, like just gone. Like I don't want to do it. But what does tech fasting look like to you and your family?
Yeah. So tech fasting is something that, again, it doesn't, just like intermittent fasting, which, Abundance talks a lot about health. You're not giving up eating if you intermittent fast. You're just choosing to eat between this time, and it has great benefits. I've seen the same thing when you're fasting from technology during key things. Weekly date night with my wife, Adam, my phone's not invited. Tried that. That's not a good combo. Horrible combo. Terrible romance builder. And then with the children as well. They're second, third fiddle if you have your phone on you and you're not really there. So that is an absolute key thing for the tech fasting, when to do it. Now, you said around dinner, we have something called the Dinner Time Challenge. This is really interesting. 60 years ago, the average dinner was about 90 minutes. And you and I sit and we go, geez, what the hell are they talking about for 90 minutes? It's almost like too long. However, and that's fine, but you go to today, Adam, the average dinner time, 12 minutes.
Jeez.
12 minutes. And you're going, what is everyone rushing off to? And again, I don't have complete data on this, but conversations I've had with people a lot smarter than me, normally they're rushing off to something that can wait now. And it's usually what? A quick check of Instagram, a quick email, a text. And so, like you said, a half hour around dinner, that's, we set the challenge for people to do 1 hour a day where everyone's phones are off. Mm-hmm. You can't get them. There's no screen in front of anyone, and you'll see the decompression that occurs, and also the lack of rush. And with intermittent tech fasting, like right now, I'm in my little home office that's 15 feet off our house, right? I normally leave my phone here, Adam. So it's easy for me to fast. At the end of the day, when I go in or I'm playing, when you have just enough space between you and your phone, that urge, it goes away. Like if I'm like in the house, I got to walk out, go out the porch, go across the driveway. It's just enough away to have that, to fulfill that little dopamine hit.
Yeah.
And so that's what I encourage people is set the times when it absolutely should not be on. Like that day, that time you have with your sons midday, I bet you it'll be 10 times better if you don't have your phone on anything.
Like even on me. Yeah.
Nope, even on you, or put it on airplane mode. Because what I've happened, I tell this story a lot. One of my daughters 10. One of my daughters is 10. Came home from work one day. I usually leave my phone again. This is before I built the home office. Leave it in the car. Leave it in the computer bag, and I left it in my pocket that day. She's like, "Daddy, can we get on the trampoline? We love our trampoline time." I said, "Sure." Get on, Adam, and I hear the zzz, zzz. I'm like, oh shit. And so, before you've even looked at it, your mind's going in 7 different directions. I pull the phone out and somebody's screwed up a closing we had. It was a simple closing. They forgot to get some final docs in. Now it's 5:30, title company's closed. So what am I doing? I'm trying to figure it out. I'm swearing under my breath. And I finally come to, consciously on the trampoline again. And there's my little 4-year-old daughter. She's got the bottom lip quivering and tears starting to come. And I'm like, what, sweetheart, are you okay? What's wrong? What's wrong? And she said, no, I'm okay. But Daddy, why are you so mad at me? And what that made me realize is we are not, this whole multitasking thing, lots of people talk about that. It's not just on getting an assignment done. It's the emotional multitasking. Like you are misdirecting your emotions sometimes. And people close to you can misinterpret it. And I saw it that day. So this is another reason why this test, keep it off of you and keep it off for certain times. I'm not telling you got to give it up and move to a survival ranch in Montana, but I'm saying there are times you have to be completely unavailable.
So you mean to tell me the guy who wrote the book on this screws this up once in a while? Wait a second.
Oh my gosh.
You're not perfect?
That's when I just did this earlier with Gary and his group. I said, one of the biggest lessons that I tell people is say, if you're coming to me to learn how to have the perfect family life, I have no idea how to help you. I'm in the trenches, same as you. And what I've learned is that whoever created that saying, the perfect family, it's non-existent. It's about
they're
bridging
a perfect liar. That's what they are.
Yeah, right? Yeah, it's like a bad bumper sticker. And I mess this up all the time. Not as much as I used to. I've definitely gotten better. But yeah, I haven't perfected this. There's times that I've screwed up and been on the phone when I shouldn't have, or said that I'd keep it separate. But I also am now more into a realization now it's become easier, because now it just becomes habitual. It becomes rhythmic. Where it's like, I don't need no, I'm going in. My phone doesn't come with me. And so again, just like an alcoholic doesn't keep liquor in their house normally, at least some of my alcoholic buddies don't. And they're like, yep, no, we just don't keep it in the house. Same thing. I don't keep it in my pocket as much as I used to anymore, and so that way there's a little space.
And I know I've seen studies on this before too, but I will literally, if I don't have my phone in my pocket, I'll still feel it vibrate in my pocket because my brain wants me to reach in and grab it. It's so weird. And I forgot they call it like the phantom nerve something. I don't remember.
Yeah, no.
But it's like your brain wants you to pick that phone up. Like it's just, that dopamine needs to come out. It's like, give it to me. And it's such a problem. And I, especially when my kids were really little, I've got a almost 2-year-old right now, so she is still really little. But when you put your phone up there, it is literally a barrier, like quite physically a barrier between you and your kid. It's not just like with my 10-year-old where, he sees me looking at it, but like that phone is like right in between my middle kiddo, Rourke. He one day was walking, or he was trying to say something to me, and he grabbed the phone and moved it like literally out of his way, and his face is right on the other side. And that's when it dawned in my head. I was like, this is literally a wall between me and my kids. Like it was mind-boggling to me. So how do you deal with it now? I mean, you've got kids who are older, right? I mean, you're talking teenage stuff that, it's all about screens and whatnot, and texting with their friends and all that. How do you deal with that? And how have your kids handled that? Your older kids, especially, with the tech fasting. Do you apply that onto them, or is that mostly just a you thing, or how do you kind of work that there?
Both. We would limit electronics, and we just on our 18 Summers podcast, my wife and I interviewed our 2 oldest sons separately, a 21-year-old and a 19-year-old.
Nice.
And it was really cool to have them say, we want you to go no holds bar, whatever you like, didn't like, everyone's been asking for you guys to be interviewed. And they said, we didn't like how there was restrictions on the electronics, but now we get it and we appreciate it. And so a lot of the buy-in came, Adam, I think, with don't ask them to do something you're not willing to do. Most teens that I've talked to at events, retreats, they think parents are complete and total hypocrites. They're telling me to turn off their phone as they're like texting me, turn your phone off. And so that doesn't go well. So, when I do these half-day one-on-one adventures with my kids, they know my phone's going off. I tell them, I said, hey, my phone's going off, airplane mode or completely off. I like to grab some pictures. And so I set the first example. And I think that was really helpful. And I say, look, the world is not going to end if your phone is off for the next few hours. And so I self-deprecate myself, rightfully. And then I say, look, I'm not asking you to do something I won't. And that was it. And then even talking with kids, like with the dinner time challenge, like what I'm saying, like, let's turn our phones off and all screens off for an hour, just around dinner time, time to talk, chat, maybe go outside. And I find sometimes teens can be very reasonable. So I remember speaking to a group and say, look, you're sitting on the couch. Your parents are like, all right, come on, we're gonna have an hour tech fast, and you turn it off. I say, but let's say you didn't turn it off, and everyone else is sitting there. They don't have their phones. They're conversating. You pull your phone out of your pocket. You get on Instagram, and someone you really don't like wrote something that you found really annoying or stupid or whatever, and you're just, it irks you, and then you put your phone away. And now you turn to your little brother or sister. Do you think you're going to be more patient with them? You're going to be more present with them? You think you're going to be, more understanding to your parents when they ask you something? The answer is no. I mean, I just proved with my daughter Maggie what I was doing on the trampoline with her before. And when I explained it to teens like that, I said, do you think you'd be less, irritable or more irritable? Oh, no, more irritable. Do you think you'd be, less open to having good conversation or more? No, less conversation. So I think sometimes if you just present it to them like that and you're saying, look, it's not forever. We just want to have sometimes where there's no screen in between our faces. And like you said, when there's no blocking of screen, I've done experiments and events like this, there's no blocking, no one's allowed to have them on. Conversation seems more fluid, seems deeper. Like all of a sudden you're planning, for families, more family adventures, or hey, whatever happened with this, you're not so fragmented.
How? What kind of schooling do your kids do? Are they homeschooled, private school, public school?
So yes, we are more like you though. Again, I wrote a blog back in the day. My 11-year-old is leaving school. And you either love me or I was a total communist. And
yeah, of course.
You just hated my guts. And because my wife and I felt like after the 5th grade, the most important things they needed to learn were individual talents and gifts, but also personal development, financial intelligence, relationship skills. I challenge to say, and I know Pat and David and Mike, I mean, I know all the guys, those are some of the key elements of GoBundance, right? Personal development, relationship skills, and financial intelligence. I know they go into more pillars, but that really is a big chunk. And our kids don't get that. So we always did kind of a blend, Adam, where my wife had a history of starting and running Montessori and Waldorf schools.
Okay.
So we would work with private schools that she would be involved with. We could pull the kids out and go road schooling. Like we've gone on the RV adventures or lived in Costa Rica for 6 weeks at a time. And so we would do a blend of homeschooling, road schooling, and Waldorf and Montessori education. The kids did 1 year of public school, and it just was not for us. And so that's kind of where we land on it. And again, finally, our 19-year-old or 21-year-old, both on great paths, both very focused. We refused to pick their paths for them. We said, are you guys okay? We didn't take the standard route. We did give you some choices, but, are you happy? They're like, we're really happy you didn't now. Because they're at friends coming home from college who are, sadly, I think they've been a little ripped off because they have less clarity now than they did 4 years ago and a lot less money, a lot more money now.
Yeah, I strongly encourage if folks can to do the homeschool. So when we first got married, my wife and I first got married, I I told her, I said, no, our kids need to go in public school, because I was in public school and I felt like it prepared me for the real world. And she was like, I think our kids should be in private school, because she was in private school and she felt like it did better for her. And then like, as soon as we had kids, I went, oh, there's no way I'm putting them in public school. Like, it was just like the light shone into my eyes, and I was like, there's no way I could do that, And then, I started talking to my wife. I said, all right, we were both military at the time. And I was like, well, maybe we should, it's got to be private schools. Then we started finding private schools. And then once I started doing full-time business, I was like, no, I really want them home. I want to be able to travel with them. I want to be able to go on a Go Abundance trip, a Fam Abundance trip, a business trip to go look at an apartment building somewhere, or, an assisted living facility or whatever. It's like, okay, let's get the kids in the car and go, because we can. And I want them to be there. Like, I was gone too much as a military guy. I want to be there now. So it sounds like you and I had similar, being able to have those conversations with the wife. But how would you recommend folks being able to have the conversation with their wife? Let's say there's a guy listening that says, hey, I really think that we should homeschool our kids, or private school our kids, or change however it is that we're doing things now. How do you recommend folks be able to talk to their spouse about that? Obviously, mainly this is dads that are listening to this, but even if it's a wife that's listening and wants to convince the dad, how do you recommend people engage with their spouse on these types of conversations?
The first thing is, look, this is you and I can joke about it now, but it's a scary thing. And some of it is like a protection. Like, I remember thinking, wow, I'm taking like happy days away from my kids. You know what I mean? Like, just that traditional this and that, and you're in the school, and then, that's like, wow, am I cheating them out of tradition? And so, be compassionate, because that's a concern, that is of a nobility. What I like to start with, Adam, and it's a great thing. Luckily, my wife and I, certain things come real easy. We were both like alternative education, like there's a better way. And I like to ask the question, it was a Seth Godin question years ago in one of his TED Talks, what is school for? What is school for? And for me and my wife, we both agreed school was to uncover our children's individual gifts and talents and help put them to work, and prepare them for the practical affairs of life. I would have a Pinocchio nose stretching 50 feet if I told you I believe that's what school did for me. Yeah. I don't think it uncovered my gifts and talents. I don't think it prepared me for the practical affairs of life. I didn't know anything about money. I didn't know anything about relationship skills. I had to learn the birthdays of dead generals, but not what makes myself tick. You know what I mean? And I love history, don't get me wrong, but just we weren't allowed to learn about ourselves. And so having that question, saying, well, what do you think school is for? And then it's again a curiosity, and say, do you think we could, and once you find that definition, do you think we could do something like that? And that might be a good way to do it. And again, with guys, if you're out there listening, here's something that I've realized that's a really good thing. Going into homeschooling does not mean you're joining the mob. It's not like, well, once you're in, you know what I mean? You're not like, there's no getting out. No, it's not like that. Like, try it for a year. It doesn't mean you can't go back to normal school, or you can't find a good private school that if like Adam, you said, I'm going to travel, that you can pull them out easier. Again, we do this blend. And for our older boys for high school, we gave them the choice to go to actually a small private one that their best buddy across the street, who's like a sixth child for us, was going to. And they said, no, we want a road school, do this. And they did pure homeschooling of the normal stuff in about a couple hours a week, and then our curriculum. So we leaned on some multiple things. And so why I'm bringing this all up is there's not just one way to do it. You can do it purely. You can work with another school. You can say, let's try it for a year, but also get clear. What's school for? What do you guys think school is for? What should the result be if school is successful? And I found when you start with that, Adam, a lot of people are going to be like, oh shit, that's a good definition you just said. I give some talents to prepare you for the practical affairs of life. Yeah. Okay. Do you think school did that for you? Hell no, it didn't do that for me. Okay, then why are we playing the charade, right? Yeah. So that's where I would start. Just some curious questions, and then no, you're not going into the mob. And again, another thing that I can joke about. Look, when I don't know, I'm 50. If you were homeschooled back in the day, Adam, like you were like biting the other kids, ramming your head into the wall, like something, you were like really disruptive. Something was up. It's just not like that anymore. And the other myth, oh yeah, your kids are homeschooled, they're not going to be able to socialize, communicate. I mean, that is the biggest pile of bullshit that I've ever found working with so many homeschool kids, including my own sons, who are very, in fact, I think some argument shows that they're actually better off. Yeah, these are, you got to get over these fears, right? And that's why I say, be gentle are you afraid of this? Are you concerned with this? Well, what do you think it should do? That's where I think you can get the best results.
Yeah, it's one of the, like, meet some actual homeschool kids and tell me that they're problems, right? Like, again, when you and I were in school, that is one of those things that when I met homeschool kids, it was like, boy, this kid's gonna have a real tough time in the real world. But like every time somebody meets my sons, they're like, how? Like, they're so well behaved, they speak so well, they shake my hand, like they look at me in the eyes. Like,
look at that, see?
Yeah,
that
it's like, right what there in the world? Like, it's one thing I did like about one of the private schools that I'd sent my kids to, or one of my kids, my oldest, is the principal would be out in the front every morning, and he would shake the hand of every kid walking in the door and say good morning, and expect a good morning, sir, and a look in the eyes with the shake of the hand before they walked in. I was like, this I love. But it was still, I was sending him into school for 7.5 hours a day to come home with 2 hours of homework. And I was like, how is my third grader doing 45 hours of schoolwork a week? Like, it did not comprehend. So one thing I do want to ask you about definitely is the road schooling. So my wife retires from the Air Force this year. Super excited about it. We're going to buy a Class A RV and travel the country for an unknown period of time. My kids have been to 8 different countries, but they've seen a decent amount of our country, but we want to show them as much of this country as we can. So our intent is to hit all 48 of the continental U.S. states here, and then drive through Canada, check out a few things there, and maybe the 51st state, according to Trump, we'll see. Then drive up to Alaska and check that out as well. But how did you kind of work the road schooling? How did your curriculum look? What sort of things did you just stop and do? Like, I know recently we did a road trip recently. It was like months ago at this point, but we did a road trip to Denver, and we were somewhere in the middle of Texas, and I was like, boy, check out those windmills. And the kids were like, oh, that's cool. And I was like, just pulled over, and we just drove up literally right to the bottom of the windmill, and we just started talking about it, right? So to me, I was like, boy, I would love to be able to do that when I'm driving around in the RV. But I want to pass it over to you as somebody who's done this, driving around and traveling and whatnot. How did you kind of incorporate the travels that you were doing with the homeschool?
With the younger kids, it was real easy. Mm-hmm. And with the older kids, you just kept them on a regimen. And honestly, if they would work an hour and a half a day while we were driving, they would get it done. When you're saying it's 5-6 hours a day, they could finish in 1 to 2 hours and even less. And so when you're not waiting out the clock and you're getting to do that and you're getting to say, and hey, let's go and we would go to different events and such and stop there, and they get to be a part of them, real estate or family. And so it really wasn't that hard to keep them on a regimen. We were trying to exercise in the morning, get out of the RV, do some sort of, calisthenics and to keep fit. And then we would make them do it in the morning. Let's get it done, eat the frog, right? And so that was one of the key things. I think another key thing that helped Adam, you've done some RVing?
No.
Oh, okay. It's awesome. And how old are your kids?
10, 6, and almost 2.
Okay. You're going to have a great time. Couple things that I'd recommend. We first of all, I love Montana, Wyoming.
Yes.
Got to go there.
Beautiful areas.
And you stole the words right out of my mouth. Northeastern Canada, like Nova Scotia and that, unbelievable. Go do it. We had such a time in Northeast Canada. So do that. What I found, though, is it's much better, Adam, to stay in one spot for a few nights than go to a new park every night. That will get old.
Yeah.
Everyone will start to feel run down. They'll start to feel a little, turned around or even cranky. What I find is, yes, you're road schooling, you're moving around. Stay someplace for a few days. Don't go. Stay in 2 RV resorts in a week instead of 5, if that makes sense, right? Because you'll start to wear down after a few weeks. And then you get to really see the area too. we always looked for museums. We always looked for history shows. Those were two things. We always looked for people that we knew from entrepreneur groups, from GoBundance. Like that was always fun. Like some of the most fun times that we've had. And when we say, what was your best memory? Oh, Kentucky. Well, my good friends, Brad and Cindy lived there, and their boys were a little older than ours, and they took them around their huge horse farm. And I mean, it was just, they loved it. So a lot of the times when we stopped to see friends or people from mastermind groups, that's where the older boys especially remember, and the youngers, as a fun time. So you have these friends out there, stop and see them. Stop in other places for more days. Look at the museums, look at the history things. Ask people if you're going there, what's a cool thing here? And they'll tell you. Like my wife was really good. Hey, we're heading into this part of the South Dakota. Where should we go? And we got info. And so that's something that really helped us. And also, I love the wilderness. I love being out in it. But I would be lying to you if I told you I was a hardcore survivalist. Don't be afraid to park the RV for a day or two and get into a nice Airbnb or go into a nice hotel. At least that's what we did, and it broke it up. And again, for the older teens to feel like they got away from their little siblings, it was a really good thing. So that's some off-the-cusp advice for you.
Love it. Yeah. So thankfully we've got, ChatGPT and all those things out right now. And ChatGPT helped me create a plan to hit all of the states, go out, because I want to hit a national park and a national monument in every single state at bare minimum. And I had a minimum stay of 3 nights at each stop because I did not want and my wife, I told her, I said, all we have to do is adjust the spreadsheet. If we want to stay 5 nights, I just click 5 and it adjusts the rest of the date so I don't have to worry about it. Like it's too easy, because we had heard that before and it was like, do not just spend one night and try to hit it. One of the plans it was giving me that was like, oh yeah, travel through these 7 states in this day. And I was like, no. I am not going to do all of that, especially with the 3 kids dragging around. But no, I love one of the things I'm thinking about doing, or what I'll likely do, especially on GoBundance. And maybe if my, YouTube channel gets big or something like that, then, is like start posting it in GoBundance and say, hey, this is the state I'll be traveling through. And then if people have recommendations or want to meet up or something like that, like what a great way to kind of introduce the kids to more people that, of like-minded kids, that type of thing. So I think it's going to be, we don't have it all figured out yet by any means. And even after it's all done, I don't think we'll have it all figured out, but regardless, I think it's going to be a great time. So,
oh no, you'll have a blast. And those surprise things, I remember for Eastern Canada, I put it out there that we were coming off of Nova Scotia and going into an area called Moncton. And a guy reaches out to me and he's like, hey man, are you near Moncton right now? So we posted the pictures. He's like, come stay with us. So I go and stay with him. And we had a blast. And now he's remained a good friend. He spoke for GoBundance, Dan Martell. He's got the big book, Buy Back Your Time. Now he's blown up. He's on Tony Robbins' stage. Well, he just took us, hey, come here, stay with us. And we had a great time. And and so you never know who you're going to meet out there when you put it out there. And it's kind of fun to get messages to say, hey, stop here or do that. And it's also great for your kids to see, wow, look, Dad's built some really cool friendships.
Absolutely. And I want to encourage that for sure. Now, you mentioned while you were on your travels, stopping at, different shows, real estate shows, or different things like that, different events that were going on with your kids, and they get to see that. That's something I love being able to expose my kids to. So now, how did you how have you integrated your kids into, your business? Not necessarily the 18 Summers, because that's obviously very pivotal, is having kids involved with that type of thing. But like with your real estate and stuff like that, how do you kind of expose your kids to that without overpressuring them in one way or another? And, how have you kind of worked with them inside of the business world?
Yeah, it's a great question. Well, our 2 older boys, they sat in on accounting meetings once a week with us for years.
Nice.
We want to share money with them. It's like so many people hide money from their kids. I think that's insane. How do you expect them to handle if they can't? They knew when things were good. They knew when things were tight. So they get to see the real thing. I don't think you don't want your kids to go into entrepreneurship in their mid-20s and go, geez, I thought everything was easy. My parents always hid it from me. I think that's a horrible thing. So we always had our kids in on the meetings, and I always encourage them not to go into real estate. I said, don't go into real estate just because of me. I think real estate investing is great, but do your thing. And so now one of them owns a charter fishing business and does real estate on the side. The other one is a fireman EMT finishing that, and he wants to do real estate on the side. I think it's awesome. They pick their things. It fits their skill set. They're both excelling. But I always encourage them not to go in the family business because there's way too many people I see do the opposite, and it's a disaster. So I've always shared the money with them. I push them to do their own thing. And then they're always involved. They're helping with we own a small school building where we host an alternative school for K-5 people in our town. And my son we're renovating there. He's helping with the renovations while it's the winter slow season for his charter fishing business. They help with different of our rentals. And we also own the house next door to us as a short-term rental. So our littler kids understand it's a great little lesson. Okay, so those people come in and they pay us, because we have a 3-year-old, a 7-year-old, and a 10-year-old. And so it's a great learning lesson to have the house next door as kind of a prototype, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So yeah, we're always very open. They're involved with the properties for certain events. I'm not going to make them sit through a whole event. Especially the younger ones, but they'll go into it. They'll see me speak. They'll meet with other kids. We just spoke at the Florida chapter for GoBundance, and our kids went down and had friends from other events. And so, yeah, I try to fit the theme for them to be, with us.
Yeah, I was so sad that I missed that Florida event. My wife couldn't get the time off and couldn't make it happen. But because I'm down here in Florida, that's where I live. So it's it was super sad for me to miss out on that one. But I heard great things about your wife was there too with you speaking about this stuff, right?
My wife was there. Our kids were there, and unfortunately, our friends from Uganda passed away shortly after.
Yeah,
and that was a shock for me because we were so excited to see him. Pat Hyben had brought him here years ago. We went to the beach club with my whole family. It was our first time seeing each other in 2 or 3 years. And then I got the news. And so it's a great reminder, don't hesitate to do stuff with your kids.
For sure.
Shocking. Sorry, side note, but it shows you the real life experience of get your kids out there because you just never know.
And I mean, that goes to everything. I mean, it's, whether it, and I hate saying this out loud, but somebody that's listening to this may have already lost a child or will lose a child, right? And you don't know when the last time you had to do that one thing you wanted to do together was or is going to be. And there was something that somebody had said at one point. I don't remember where I heard it, but my son has used this against me now since I've said it. I said, he said, there's going to be the last time your kid goes up on your shoulders. There's going to be the last time your kid wants to hold your hand walking through the mall. There's going to be the last time. You don't know when the last time is. It may have already happened. It may be the next time. You don't know. But eventually it's going to be the last time your kid does one of those things. And it was like a smack in the face. Like just hearing that almost made me cry the day that I heard it. And then like my son would be like, Daddy, can I get on your shoulders? And I'm like, no, not right. He's like, it might be the last time. I'm like, sure, bud. Let's get the other shoulder. Like, you little punk. So
well, I wish we could cut right now to our joke because one of the original 18 Summers things was my 2 sons at like 7 and 9. One's on my shoulders. I'm holding one.
Yeah.
Well, they're gargantuans now. They're like 4 inches taller than me, big. And so there's a picture of me holding them on the beach. Like I did it a few years ago. I'm like, I'm not doing this ever again. How I did it, but it's like so uncomfortable looking. It's like, yeah, case in point. So, but yeah, all joking aside, that's why we named the company 18 Summers. The average person will spend 85% of the quality time they ever get with their children by the end of the 18th summer. Mm-hmm. That's the average person. Now, I do think when you're intentional, you don't only have 15% time left. You can have 20, 20, 30, 35 plus. But again, the average person, think about that. The average person is already done with about 85% of the time they ever get with their child by the end of the 18th summer. That's why the years are not all created equal.
And that was it was one of the impetuses to me doing the homeschool thing too. I was just like, I don't get that time back. I've already lost time with the kids from the military side of the house. I've already lost time because of business. I'm not getting it back. Like I might as well amplify the time I do have right now. And 45 hours a week with my kid in school is not amplifying that, I assure you. Like that's, and then you get each other at the end of the day when you're both spent, right? I've already done a full day's work. They've already done a full day's work. And now we have to do homework together when we're both exhausted and neither one of us want to do it. We just want to be able to play or do something with each other. But here we are doing other things that now we're miserable with each other. And it's like, okay, well now the time we do have isn't even quality. Like what happened? So I love the reminder, and I tell people all the time to think about it that way. Like, you have 18 summers, like that's all you have with them before they leave the house. Make sure that you're using all the time you have wisely. So, in real life, when you're going through all of your seminars and whatnot, and, not everybody has the blessing to be able to, work from home or, have the home office or whatever. If you have two parents that are working 9 to 5, how are they, even if one of them is an entrepreneur like us, like building a business or growing a business, how do they practically kind of sit down and apply some of the things you're talking about? I don't work from home. I'm gone, 10 hours a day at work. Like, what am I doing? I don't want you to give away a bunch of the book because I want people to listen to the book, but or read the book. But how do they have some practical steps in their life to, if they were to write now, what are some things they could write down to start doing?
Schedule one-on-one time. That's it. Schedule one-on-one time. Well, we don't have a lot of money. That's fine. It doesn't mean you can't go for a walk around your neighborhood with your husband or wife. I want to set one of these days with my kids, but what if they want to do something really expensive? A lot of times they don't. I've gone to the beach before and it was free, and then we got like a $10 lunch. So scheduling one-on-one time, I think, is key. Also, if people want to be like you, Adam, or like I was, where the main subjects, that's just not my thing to teach. Someone was brought in personal development, financial intelligence, relationship skills. I want to learn those with my kids. A good book only costs about $20, and you can get great abridged versions of great books where it brings it down to the kids' level, or even comic books from a Kiyosaki type thing. Start to read these to your kids. If you're wanting to homeschool, and you can't homeschool because I can't be home, I can't do that, man, if you picked 3 simple books a year even, you'd be ahead of most parents. You're reading it to them slowly. And my wife, loved to read The Overlander and Harry Potter and a few of the others. But then we would also read something like, a bridge version of Richest Man in Babylon. Mm-hmm. Or, and then once the teens got older, like my son now has read The Alchemist 11 times. It's his favorite book. He can't stop reading it. But we would do Rich Dad, Poor Dad, 7 Habits of Highly Effective Teens, The Alchemist. Once they were at the teen years where they could read, and we only did about 3 books a year, Adam, maybe 4, and we discuss them very slowly once a week, 10 to 15 pages. Man, I got more out of that last time reading Richest Man in Babylon, reading it with my sons and my wife, than I ever did reading it on my own. So that's one of the ways I can't afford to be home all the time. I can't do a homeschool. Great. Well, then there's off hours that you could do some learning together. Mm-hmm. What's a subject they need to learn? Find that book. Read it side by side with them. I know a lot of people do this, Adam, and it's one of my mentors taught me this, and he's since said, no, I get it. It's a starting point to be able to say to your kid, okay, read this book, write a report, and I'll give you $100. And okay, it gets them to do it. But the problem with that is when you're reading that with that goal, they're like, oh, is this going to be on the test? They're just kind of trying to find words to put onto that page to get the $100. When you do a deep dive, slow digest, and you read the book side by side with them slowly, man, it is a total game changer. You're discussing, you're bringing in real life examples, and you do this with like a How to Win Friends or Influence People, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, it's fascinating what you see your kids starting to uncover. They won't get that same thing if they're alone in their room rushing through it to find some words to put on the paper and get the $100. And they will definitely not embed the lessons as well.
For sure. Yeah, I absolutely love that. I recently bought, I shouldn't say recently, I bought, there are these books called The Tuttle Twins.
We love the Tuttle Twins.
Yeah,
They're awesome.
Yeah, so I got like all of their books and sitting over here, and I have yet to sit down and read it with them. And I don't know why. I just have it like my son goes and reads them, or my son will read them to his little brother. But I was like, why am I not, as you're saying that, like, why am I not sitting down reading this book with them? Like, because now I can actually influence even more into the conversation and, expose even more, like beyond what the words in the paper are giving them, but like real life things that I've got going on, in my stuff. But I love the concept of sitting down and doing those growth books. And if anybody's listening and doesn't have the money to do that, call me or send me a message. I'll mail you books. Like, that's like how come on, like do it. Like I want everybody to just be involved in their kids' lives and make a difference. If you felt like you missed something in your life, like think about what your kids are missing. What are your kids missing when they get to be 30 years old? Are they going to go, boy, I wish my dad would have done this with me? Like don't let them have that opportunity. Do everything you can to avoid like every pitfall you can. So
Absolutely.
There's a thing that I've joked about, but I probably shouldn't. But it's like you're going to screw your kids up. It's just a matter of how much, or in what ways. What ways would you say that you kind of quote unquote screwed your kids up, and how did you kind of adjust as you were seeing it happen?
Well, I've definitely screwed them up, but the adjustment was pretty navigable, easy to navigate. I don't know the other word.
Navigatable, yeah.
God, you're showing off now. I couldn't even say it. That was impressive. Navigatable. You're right. Okay, so we always had this thing called the connection formula, where it was 3 questions. The last question is, what's one thing I can work on? And we would do it periodically, and my sons would have different things. Like I remember my oldest son many years ago said, I wish you would tell us more when you're leaving. I was traveling some for real estate. He's like, I get really sad. I wake up in the morning, and all of a sudden you're not there. And I wish we knew when you were traveling more. And I'm like, well, we said it to you, but we probably said it to them as they're running across the yard, playing with the dog. So we made a new rhythm around it on Sunday meeting. Just say, oh, I got travel coming up in 2 weeks of this and this, and give them the heads up. Well, that got fixed, and then there'd be another one and another one. I remember one time he's like, no, I don't really have anything. And my wife and I were like, oh my gosh, but a few months later there was something. So
yeah, of course.
I hit 0 once, but just giving the chance for them to ask, where am I messing up? And just asking, you're going to find out a lot. And it's not, don't list, but it's what's one thing I could do better? My kids were like, I want to be with you in the morning. Okay, done. Like you just said, what would you like? Dad, we want to play with you in the middle of the day. Done. We'll fit into my schedule. So really you have to be willing to ask. I think that one of the ways I screwed my kids up in the beginning, well, and even throughout, is the Superman complex. I write about that in my book when my son was scared to climb the lighthouse. And he finally did. He was terrified of heights. Finally did it, and we went and hung out on the beach afterwards. And he said, Dad, have you ever been afraid? And that was that might sound like, that's a horrible example to set for my son. A 6-year-old who thinks I've never been afraid, because now he can't live up to that. He's feeling all sorts of fears and things. It doesn't mean he can't be brave or courageous, but that's bullshit. And I was setting that example, like he had to say, have you ever been afraid? So I think one of the things I did wrong was to hide challenges. If there was challenges with health, challenges with money and business, now I'm very conversational about all that. If any of those things are coming up. And so that's better. But I think that's one thing. I know my oldest son has said, and we've got a great relationship. He said, I wish, sometimes you had told us more about what you were going through. So I think that's, something that isn't, it could be worse, but it's something I could have done better for sure.
No, it's I think it's something that all of us innately want to shield our kids from is the challenges, right? It's a, pain at work and everything. Oh, our kids don't need to be, burdened with that. But, you don't have to say, oh yeah, well, I had these 3 employees that were really struggling and I had to fire one of them. And there's a really problem with, sending the paychecks out. No. Like you don't have to, especially if there's 7, you don't need to go through all of that. But man, I just had a really rough day at work. Like there were some problems that I had to try to solve and we couldn't figure some of this stuff out. Like exposing your kids to the fact that, man, dad really struggles too. Cause, it is a true thing when especially boys looking to their dad, he never struggles with anything. He not afraid of anything. How am I ever going to live up to that? And it's like, no, I fail miserably every day. And it was, what is her name? Sarah Blakely? Is that her name? What's her name? The Spanx girl?
Yeah. What's his name's wife? Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. She said at her dinner table with her dad would also ask, what did you fail at today? And it was to encourage them to try something difficult that was, and just like, so we started doing that with the kids, and we haven't done it very much recently. I need to get back onto it. But I was like, what did you fail at? Because I want to encourage my kids to fail at stuff, right? Because failing, but fail forward. And that's what I tell the kids all the time. I said, fail often, fail forward, right? Because if you fail and then just give up completely, then yeah, like now you haven't learned anything from it either, right? But if you fail and you move forward, then great. I need to tell you where I fail miserably at as well, right? So when I screw up with them, I'll tell them like, hey, I really screwed this up today. I should have done this with you. And it's funny because my 10-year-old thinks at this point he should be consoling me when I'm saying that. I'm like, no, I'm not looking for you to console me. What I'm saying is like, Daddy screwed something up, and I need to tell you when I screw something up, because like I need to represent what that is and how you can attack it and become better at it. You seem to have a nice, calm demeanor, calm communication style and whatnot. Is that something that you have pretty normally? Do you use that with your kids as well? Are you pretty calm in that communication type of style all the time?
Most of the time. I'm a goof. I was class clown, so behind the scenes, I'm just making up silly songs and getting down to their level and playing with them. I think for the most part I have a calm demeanor, but I'll have to apologize for raising my voice or being short. But I think a lot of the times, that's my wife says the sexiest thing you do is parent with me. It's when you're in your zone. So I appreciate that, but I think I've developed something, especially over the last 10 years, with the older boys that I'm now taking to the younger kids. So it's nice to be able to deliver that.
Yeah, I have a tendency still to put up my military wall way too often, right? And have that just like hard demeanor about me. And man, oh man, like I hate saying it this way because it sounds odd, but like if you catch me after a drink of whiskey, and I just kind of relax and turn into what used to be my very normal state of just always joking, having fun, being okay with being playful. And it's like, man, oh man, why can't I have that all the time? And then I think it's Jordan Peterson I was listening to at one point, and he was like, too many people will use that alcohol. Like that person is still inside of you. That person who can go up and talk to that girl that you were uncomfortable talking to, or that person who can connect with somebody emotionally is there. You just hide it, and the alcohol allows you to expose it and gives you an excuse for it. So it's one of those where I look at it and go, how can I grab a hold of that in a normal relationship, in normal style, and just kind of let go of that wall of lack of emotion that I have, to be able to connect better with the kids, to be able to connect better with my wife, to be able to be that goofball, more often. Would you say that you said that you learned some stuff with the olders that you now get to apply with the kids. How did you kind of take a look at that and adjust it as you were now going on with the younger kids to be able to say, you know what, I can let that part of this go. And maybe it wasn't an ego thing like it probably is with me, but how did you kind of figure that out and then let it go?
Yeah, I think it's always an ego thing. One thing, and I hinted on it before, like take the saying of perfect family out of your mentality, take it out of your vocabulary. You don't want a perfect family. That you'd be robots. I mean, it doesn't exist. I've never seen it. So when I stopped trying to think, I want to have the perfect family, and I focused on bridging our imperfections, making the most of the time we had together, a different guy shows up, right? When you're we need to be perfect. You might get more staunch. You might get more demanding. Not that you're not holding accountable or striving for better, but perfection, can be a really hard thing that you end up putting on yourself, your spouse, your children, and they'll feel that. So I would say, ease up on the perfection gas, you know what I mean? And just, it's something you got to kind of mentally sit with. But when you do, it's really helpful. Also, Adam, for me, one of the best things that I've done, and there's even like family jokes about this, is, it didn't come naturally for me to give genuine compliments. It's not how I grew up, and it felt really awkward. And also, apologies don't come easy. I'm a bullheaded ADD, A personality entrepreneur. An apology is not, I'm sorry that offended you, Adam. That's not the type of, I'm talking about a sincere, genuine apology or compliment. The more I started to give those to my children, to my wife, like an apology, you have the opportunity of a lifetime when you step out of line to apologize to a young child and you know what I mean, just bow deep to them, and it will come back to you in a good way. They are gaining a trust in you when they do have bigger things in later years. I think they'll come back to you. My older boys have said that to me. And my oldest, and I remember one of them got in trouble. The second oldest got in trouble. We were talking about something happened at school, and this is years ago. But our oldest son said, Leland, just apologize. You know, it's not a big deal. I mean, look at Dad. He messes up all the time, but he always apologizes. And I was like, best backhanded compliment ever. But when you have that chance to apologize, take it, and take it like just completely and without like catches. And that's something that's really helped me, because if not, then you're holding on to things. You're giving yourself immunity when you act like possibly an asshole, and you just don't want to do that. You know what I mean? And so give them that gift of sincere compliments, genuine apologies. It goes a long way.
Yeah, I completely agree with that for sure. On especially the apology side of the house, like my kids have seen me apologize probably for things I don't even need to, but I feel like there's something there, so I need to throw it out there. So I love it. So I want to go into the business side of the house a little bit as well. Like we talked a little bit about, you know, how you've exposed the kids to it, but your business is mostly real estate investment stuff. Kind of what have you been building on? What is it that you do on the business side on both the real estate and 18 Summers? Let's dig into both of those separate companies just to kind of understand and let people know what you're doing.
Yeah, so 18 Summers, I just do some talks, workshops, once in a while a retreat, and really just bulk book sales. It's a great little business that has its place in my heart and in the world, and we're always getting asked to be involved in something, and I love being able to work with families, especially entrepreneur families. So through talks and workshops in our book, I'm able to do that. Also,
more of a passion project that brings in money anyways?
Yeah, I mean, it can bring in some money if I gave it more focus, but I also don't want to take time away from our family. So it's kind of a balance, but it's something that I plan to be getting more into this decade of my life. That's something
Okay.
I've now hitting 50.
Love
Real
it.
estate's always been my main vein. It's what paid for the 18 Summers movement in my first book, you know, that did well. And I started just like everybody else, fixing up old houses, and did a volume of that, did bulk foreclosures. 10 years ago, I went into new construction turnkey rentals. So now I'm a partner in a large build-to-rent company. So we build single-family, duplex, quads, and whole communities for individual investors, family offices, institutions, in about 12 different markets in Florida, and we've just started going to Texas as well. So I kind of head up sales and marketing for that company, and have a piece in it, a great partner, and that's where I spend most of my time. I've worked with a number of GoBundance guys buying properties through us, and again, our big shtick was I did plenty of fixer-upper old properties and hung up my shoes years ago, and I only do new construction for the last decade.
Love it. So you do the construction and then sell it to somebody who's going to turn it into a rental?
We do. We build right, finance right, manage right. So we build it for them on our dime. So they're not doing a pre-construction with us. We build it on our dime. And then we also have in-house financing. Right now, we're locking in our investors as low as 3.75% long term. So we're beating the market by 3.5 points right now. And then we manage. We have a large management company that manages in all our different markets. So we try to bring in all the pieces for people. And honestly, going from old fixer-uppers to new construction is an unfair advantage. Again, I still own old houses, but the new construction for our avatar person is out of area. They're busy with other things they want to own in the growth markets we're in. And new construction just has less turnover, less maintenance and repairs, longer tenancy. It's just been a good model for us.
Awesome.
And it's more scalable too. The volume we're doing now, I could have never done with old fixer-uppers, never.
So are they all single family, or do you do like duplex, quadplex, triplex type stuff too?
So we do a recipe of single family duplex quads.
Okay.
So those are the three that we build.
Nice. What are your main markets?
We're in Jacksonville, Palm Coast, Ocala, Greater Ocala area, about 3 more markets there, and then Southwest Florida.
Okay. Very nice. So what would be you already mentioned a little bit of your typical avatar for the person buying, probably out of state, that type of thing. So are they buying usually just one at a time, or are you looking at people buying a handful of houses from you at a time? What's the pipeline usually looking like?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, our most successful investors, we have over 1,000 investors, have bought an average of 3 to 8 properties. Now, we've had some individuals that have gone up to 25 properties, but our average buys like their own small running business of 3 to 8 properties that we manage for them. And people will start with 1 or 2 to start. Sometimes we have people who have an exchange or wanting to really hop in that'll buy 3 or 4 to start. But I'd say most people start with 1 or 2. But our kind of avatar success buyer has bought 3 to 8 properties, and it's like just a solid little performing soldier for them.
Okay. What's the cash flow for a build to rent property look like?
You're looking 6-7% cash on cash. So we stay pretty conservative on that. But also what we found with new construction is the wind can usually get at your back pretty quick, opposed to the older properties where maintenance repair starts going up and it seems a little more stagnant. So yeah, we don't try to overpromise on returns. We try to get for that solid base where we feel, again, my whole model now is, Adam, own less of better quality. That's when I look at it, and, in my book, it's all, you did all these and you own hundreds of properties. Yeah, but a lot of them were losing me money. And so it's like I own way less property now and I have more cash flow and equity than I ever did. There's a lesson in that. So the new construction, I tell people, don't get caught up in the number of properties. How do they perform? Where will they be in 3-5 years? If you're looking for a long-term buy and hold, it's got to have that ability to long-term buy and hold. If you have something that's always turning over and constant maintenance and hidden problems, it is a pain in the tail.
Yeah, absolutely it is. And since you guys kind of control the whole, all 3 phases of that, I suppose it makes it a little easier to control the numbers on both sides of it too. So if folks are listening to that, they're like, boy, this sounds like, for instance, I'm looking at a franchise right now, right? So it's like, boy, man, 35,000 to 60,000 down, running a business, all of this stuff. Like this sounds more reasonable if I put X amount of money. What are your kind of average cost for a house going in? What's the normal price of the house? And then you're financing it. Do you guys have like an internal debt fund on your side, or is it you guys just have partners to finance?
We don't have an internal debt fund. It's actually called a builder forward commitment. So
okay.
We can go to banks. We have a strong enough balance sheet where we can go to banks and we can pre-buy money from them in large tranches. So we work with 2 different banks, and they, like our balance sheets, they allow us to do this, and we buy these mortgage chunks that our clients can use. So it's through a bank, but we have to pre-buy the money for them. So that's how it works. Our average property, Adam, is going from $265,000 for a single family in Central Florida to $985,000 for a high-end area of Jacksonville, Florida quad. So that's kind of our range to do it. You're looking at 20-25% down. On average, we give 2 years of free property management to start. That's kind of the main pieces of it.
Wow, that's a phenomenal model. When did you start doing this?
This started a little over about 10 years ago now. It was about 2015, and it came out of necessity. I was always the fixer-upper, bulk foreclosures. I'd buy foreclosures, fix them up, keep them for myself, sell them to investors. They started to dry up. The numbers weren't working anymore. And my now building partner came to me. We had done some deals together. Him and his father managed my portfolio. He said, what would you think if we built our own properties instead of rehabbed old ones? I was like, that's a terrible idea. I'm a rehabber. So I thought it was terrible. Little did I know it scaled, did very well. I finally merged my company with his a few years ago because it just made sense.
Man, that is super cool. So do you still do any? Do you do any larger products on the side yourself? Like, do you do apartment buildings and like that, or are you like full in on the build to rent stuff?
No, we did build an RV resort, which is a really cool project to be a part of, and we let one of our partners buy us out about 1.5 years ago. It's a really cool project. Hard to say no to not stay in it, but we wanted to really focus on this one model. So I'm not doing apartment syndication. We used to raise some land funds, but we don't even do that anymore. So fully focused on this. I know a lot of guys in GoAbundance doing some incredible things. I'm just a simple, repetitive, single family duplex quad builder. That's kind of
our thing. No, I think that we were talking to one guy when I was at the Utah trip. He's up in New York, does a bunch of student housing stuff, and he's like, I've tried to do this and I try to do that, but he is like crushing it in his student housing. And he's like, it's kind of boring, I'm doing this. And then one of the guys is like, do you realize how amazing your boring stuff is doing for you? Like, why don't you just stick to the boring? Like, if you need some adventure in your life or in your investment, that's fine. Like, go off and, have a small adventure fund, something to go do. But your boring is kicking butt, so just do it, And I think that's wise advice for a lot of folks. Like, I mean, take a look at what you're doing in your life that's earning you money and just double down on it. Like, you may not like it as much as something else, but man, if it's working and it gives you the lifestyle you want, then double down on it and just keep going. I think that's. I've spent so much time chasing my tail on different things. Like, oh, well, that sounds really cool. Let me go do that. Oh, that sounds cool. Let me go do that. And then like I look at some of the opportunity costs, because everything you say yes to, you're saying no to other stuff. So what have I said no to that I could have done really well at? Is where my brain is always like, well, maybe I said no to that. Maybe I need to go chase that. But the truth to what that is say no to more things. Like say no to more things.
And you don't have to be if you're always changing, then you're always the freshman instead of the senior. Nice to be a senior and have a little more, know-how and comfort. And so don't always aim to be a freshman. It's funny you said that. My initial mentor was Keith Cunningham, who wrote The Road Less Stupid. He's a really old school Texan and great, unbelievable teacher. He used to say that all the time. Making money should be boring. If you want excitement, go jump out in an airplane, go dive with sharks or whatever you like to do. He's like, but that's how it's supposed to be. That means you've made it. And take that time and go choose the adventures outside of that boring that's making the money, and your family and your friends. And, I'd rather have the excitement in those categories, Adam, than excitement elsewhere.
Yeah, every time I've had quote unquote excitement in business, it's also come with a lot of extra points on my blood pressure that I didn't need to. So it's I'd prefer not to have those, and a lot of extra gray hairs in my beard over here on this. But it's like, man, oh man, that I don't need that excitement in my life. So boring would be kind of nice at the moment. So what, if anything, have we not hit on that you would say, boy, I definitely want to chat about this. I really wanted to come talk about this too.
The only thing that's come up in a lot of conversation came up on my GoPod. That's my, little accountability call with a couple of guys and just, general brainstorming stuff on a few recent podcasts is, we have to be very careful as entrepreneurs to start to spoil our kids where they're not going to work. That is something that I'm seeing of serious consequence. Our rule is you can do something, but you can't do nothing. Our money is tied to certain values. And if you don't buy into those values, then that's fine, but you will receive nothing. Like I can give the example of addiction. Unfortunately, I've had it in parts of our family, not our immediate family, but it's, it is something that I will not fund. You know what I mean? If you take that route, I will love you. I'll try to get you help, but I will not fund addiction. I won't pay for your apartment and your phone and give you a monthly stipend so you can destroy yourself. I love you too much. So I just think parents want to be really aware of, it's okay for them to feel some, some sweat on their brow. And we're not supposed to pre-tire them before they've even started to make their own bones. It's kind of a semi-epidemic I'm seeing right now, and I just tell people, it's okay to say no to the kids. It's okay for them to earn on their own. It's gonna stand better for them. God forbid something happens to you, where would they be? So anyway, for what that's worth, it's just been a conversation that's been coming up in brainstorm and reflection, and it's what most people want. I remember when I did this survey a long time ago when I was starting the retreats, I hundreds of entrepreneurs. I said, "What's your biggest concern with your children?" And it came back like 90-something%. People kept saying, "I want my kids to appreciate what they have." It's like a major scare for guys like you and I, Adam, that like roll me over dead before my kids are like spoiled, entitled. At least that's how I feel, and I don't ever want that, and so many others don't. And so I think, it's just something you want to put the awareness glass on.
For sure. And that was something that was talked about a lot. I've mentioned it like 3 times now, but at the Utah event that we just got done with, the GoBundance thing, it was a lot of the family stuff. I mean, they had a guy there talking about the trusts and how, setting all that stuff for your family is great and all, but like teaching them how to use that money when they get it, teaching them how to earn their own money, like teaching them how to, like giving them the skills is way more important. And that's something that I'm super passionate about. Like my balance sheet may not be nearly what a bunch of the other guys in that room is. But I know that when I come home, my kids love to see me. I know that I spend quality time with them. I fail miserably as a dad multiple times, just like every other dad out there. But like pouring into the gardens that mean the most to me is where I think it makes most sense. And that garden of family is by far, like my legacy is going to be my last name years and years from now, not, whatever real estate I bought this year, like that's going to be done and gone and probably not in the family anymore. But man, oh man, my family's still going to be around. Their kids are still going to have kids. They're going to hopefully remember, their great grandfather Adam. And hopefully I've done a good job kind of setting them up for that. So I appreciate you adding that to it. I mean, making sure that they're able to go out in the world and be productive humans, and I tell my boys, like, my goal is to raise them to be better men than me. And hopefully all of us are doing the same thing with our kids, is to raise them to be better humans than we are. And the only way we can do that is represent what that is and show them when we're screwing up so they know how to fix what they're doing too. So
I love that definition. I say for my kids, my older sons, I always said, all I want is for you guys to be strong men that care. That's it. So that's my goal.
I love it. That's right on the same mission. I appreciate it. Well, Jim, I thank you so very much for jumping on. I greatly appreciate it. I'm glad we were finally able to make it happen. If folks want to reach out to you, whether it's for 18 Summers or whether it's for some real estate stuff, they hear something that they liked, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
Yeah, you can go to 18summers.com if you want a copy of the book or some of the other free downloads that we offer there. Find out what we're up to. Real estate-wise, you can go to southernimpressionhomes.com. Check out what we do with Build to Rent, the investors we work with. I also have a best-selling book about real estate called The Passive Income Playbook. It's all about new construction rentals.
I love it. All right. So hopefully anybody listening, if any of that struck a chord with you, go ahead and reach out to Jim. Jim, thank you again very much for jumping on. Greatly appreciate it. Thank you for the awesome book that really inspired me as a dad to kind of keep pushing forward and doing better things with my family. I'm sure you hear that often, but I truly do thank you so much for inspiring so many people and having a phenomenal mission like that. Thank you everybody for listening. Please like, subscribe, do all that stuff. Comment down below. Reach out to Jim if there's anything he can do to serve you. And we'll see everybody on the next show.
Thank you so much for listening to the BizDad Podcast. We hope you found some value in your time here with us, and we look forward to bringing you the next episode. If you've enjoyed today's show, please subscribe and share so you and your friends won't miss our upcoming episodes. Connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Rumble, where we continue these discussions and share more valuable content. Be the dad you know you need to be and run your business in a way you're proud to share with your kids. Keep crushing it.